colors for a white pumpkin, which is a thing I didn't even know existed before I moved to the US. But now I see them and they're so beautiful. So I really wanted to paint one. But since mixing colors for very, very white objects is very tricky, what I'm doing right now is I'm actually mixing the color of the background. So behind that pumpkin, I laid out a kind of yellowish paper. I laid it behind the model, and it's about this color. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have this color sit there on the palette right there, and that is gonna provide me with context. I'm gonna be comparing my other paints to that. So let's start. I'm gonna first mix the lightest color that I see on the pumpkin. It's super duper light, and it has maybe a bit of a yellowish flavor. We're gonna see this yellowish flavor throughout this painting because, again, since the pumpkin is actually white, it's subject to a lot of reflections from the environment, and the environment is indeed yellow. So this might be a little too yellow. I'm gonna add a little bit of crimson just to pull it towards more of a pink. Okay, yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, that looks really good. So I'm gonna set this to the side. Where am I gonna put it? I'm gonna put it here. And then what I'm gonna do is move towards the middle of the pumpkin. So the middle of the pumpkin, again, also yellowish. But actually, now that I look at it, there's two middle colors. One, the bottom of the pumpkin, which is yellowish, which is what I'm mixing right now. And the one on top is actually purplish bluish, which is a super interesting situation that happens here. I'm going to explain all about it, but I got to add some white. All right, so as I said, bottom of the pumpkin is kind of like a yellowish gray, the one I'm mixing right now. And the top of the pumpkin looks more blue. And the reason that is because the bottom of the pumpkin is closer to the table that it sits on, and that table is indeed a yellowish brown, so it reflects this color on the pumpkin. And then the pumpkin that's on top, like the taller part of the pumpkin, is getting a little bit of bluishness from the reflection of the sky. You know, it's sitting next to a window in my studio, and the sky kind of falls on the pumpkin, so I'm adding some cerulean blue to get a kind of bluish gray. And actually that came out super cool. I really like this color. I'm just gonna, consider myself lucky that I got here in quick order. So that's great. I'm gonna put it here. I'm comparing them to make sure that they're roughly the same value. And I think they are. And actually, I want to make, now that we have a kind of warm-cool dichotomy here, I want to make a colder version of this color. And I think I'm going to just blast it with some white. Maybe that was too much. A little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this painting is gonna be all about the relationships between these colors that lean more towards yellow and then these colors that lean more towards a bluish gray. And that's probably gonna be a really, really fun game to play. Just gonna add one of them and make it like a, it's hard to it's hard to stop mixing these highlights. They're so beautiful. Make it like a purplish version, which sits right in between cold and warm. And that's gonna be right here. All right, so we got a lot of nice light colors to work with. Now let's mix two colors for the shadow. Where are we gonna go? Let's go with ochre. Why ochre? Because it's a fairly light color that isn't white. Let's see if I can reach these colors without adding white, because, there's white everywhere else in this painting, so it'd be nice if there was a small area that didn't have it. And that looks pretty good. Actually, maybe the chroma is a little bit high. I'm gonna add some of that blue to make it a little bit more gray. And also some burnt umber. Bit more. Burnt umber pulls it a little bit towards orange. This could be useful, but I'm not loving this color. I'm gonna put it aside. Let's try a different direction. Let's just go burnt umber and cadmium orange. What are we gonna get? Okay, a beautiful brown that we can neutralize with some cerulean. So if some color doesn't work out like you want it, just, try again from a different direction. Oh man, that is killer! Love that. Okay, so this I'm really happy about. And then maybe I'll make a version of it that's even more gray. So this is gonna be playing the game with these guys. And then the one that's a little bit more gray, we're gonna use raw umber, which is a lower chroma color. Cadmium orange and cerulean blue. There we go. This one is lower in chroma, grayer. Beautiful stuff. Okay. Now, since we don't need this, I'm just gonna clear it off the palette, keep it all neat. And now let's look at the colors that we see in the stem. So the stem is a kind of shock of shocks gray. So we're gonna take some umber, some raw sienna, and some white. Okay, needs to be a little bit more yellow. I'm gonna go with cadmium lemon. Just because if I was adding ochre or sienna, I would be adding like vast amounts, and I'm not feeling like that's where I want to go. See, with the cadmium I can add a tiny amount and it's gonna blast the color, like make it super yellow pretty instantly. So it's good to have a friend in the cadmium department. All right, that looks really, really nice for the light part of the stem. Put it here. Notice the value difference, right? The light part of the stem is by no means as light as the light part of the pumpkin itself. And now the shadow looks a lot like an umber, but we're gonna mix umber and we're gonna go with the lemon just to make it a little bit lighter. But I don't want to use white because white is gonna strip it completely of chroma. So by lightening it up with cadmiums, I'm preserving the chroma of the color, even intensifying it, which, we like. So that's a great shadow. And then there's an even darker one. So I'm gonna go for black, and I'm gonna go for umber, and I'm gonna go for alizarin, and I'm gonna go for cadmium orange. I feel confident about this combo. There we go. Beautiful stuff. Gosh, this is gonna be so fun to paint. Bit more crimson. Okay, that looks really nice. Now what I think I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna scooch these over. And I'm gonna make one that's a little bit lighter. So grab some white paint, lighten it up, and take it a bit towards red, make it a bit pink. There we go. Maybe a little bit blue. Oh man, kind of got away from me. Add a little bit more of this original color. Here we go. Okay, that is fun. Now, this color is part of the background, as we said, so it doesn't really belong there. I try to keep an organization here, and then here I'm gonna do a kind of warmer version of that previous color, just to have, because we said that we're gonna work with these relationships of warm versus gray. Yeah, but this has nothing to do with what I'm seeing, just nothing. I'm gonna clear it out. Took it towards orange when I should have taken it towards yellow. You saw me kind of shake between them. Yellow was the right answer. Okay. Yep. Yellow is the right answer with a bit of crimson, perhaps. Nice. Oh, this is gonna be great. Okay, and then let's mix some a few other colors for the background. So what's going on in the shadow there is fascinating. In the transition to the shadow, we suddenly see that blue happening again. The skies are making an appearance. Bit more, and I'm gonna put a bit of crimson too, because that color maybe even looks more purple than it does blue. Really hard to judge. Really hard to judge. Okay. That looks promising. So we're going to call that the transition towards the shadow. And then the shadow itself is surprisingly chromatic. And also, you know, not very dark because it's a shadow on a yellow piece of paper. So how dark is it going to get? Not very. So yeah, it's an interesting chroma relationship over here. Like the shadow is orange, and then we got a gray transition, and then we got a peach kind of yellow color there. Pretty beautiful stuff that's happening there. Bit more orange here. All right, I like that a lot. And now let's do the floor. So on the floor, we're gonna start with, we're gonna need more raw sienna. Okay, so start with less chroma, raw sienna, umber, and white. Going for grays here. There we go. Like that. And then there's a color that's actually lighter than that and lower chroma than that. And so I think white is gonna solve both of those concerns. Maybe that's a little too gray. Just a bit more. Yeah, we love it. Okay, excellent. And then as it gets darker, we see that blue again. This is gonna be really fun to paint. I like that whole event. Goes yellow, goes blue. It's a beautiful play. More blue and actually also darker. I'm gonna go with some burnt umber. More, and more. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, that looks great. So we're gonna put that here, transition towards the shadow. And then the shadow itself has two colors. One is very similar to this, so I think I'm gonna be able to use the same one. And then the last one is a kind of very, very, very deep dark. So we're gonna go with black, umber, and alizarin. A little bit of cadmium orange. More crimson. Yeah, that looks good. All right, I think I'm ready to paint this.
Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, save it, and leave a comment. For longer videos and for live events, please consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/KenGoshen or by visiting the link in my bio and clicking Patreon. For lessons, please visit my website at kengoshen.com/lessons or by visiting the link in my bio and clicking Lessons. Thanks again, and see you next time.